may very well have been overwhelmed by the fact that the thing that maybe had kept him going, something to look forward to every day, to keep communicating with people, and the kind of a little bit of spotlight was on him, even in his advanced years, and it kind of gave him something to live for, quite frankly. And then it was over, and maybe that had some effect on him. Maybe he just simply had a heart attack, and that's all there is to it, for whatever reason. And the timing is just coincidence. What do you think, Tober? Something else that I think is very interesting, and I alluded to it earlier, is that there is a video by Amy Seeks, which is a very, very good video to watch if you kind of want. As someone said, a friend of mine who emails with me, she said, it's interesting to see a group of people who can sit around and just kind of banter in a very knowing way about Forrest Fenn. And you can just tell they know a lot more than we do without actually saying it. And I remember when I watched this video, of course I'll leave the link, but it was Dale and Cynthia and Justin Posey, and thank God, can we get rid of the GPS hoax bull crap that was, and everybody knew it was, and now we know that Jack has come out and said there was no GPS solution there. I don't know. I'm not going to even get into that. But anyway, this panel of Dale and Cynthia and Amy and Justin Posey at some point drops in. I think someone else drops in. But they talk about some people who knew the location of where Fenn wanted to die. And I find that very interesting because they name a couple of people. You can go watch the video if you want. And again, this weird sense of where, not a weird sense, but this knowing solve of figuring out where Forrest Fenn wanted to die, which Forrest Fenn always said it was about where he wanted to die. And Jack talks about where he wanted to die. And, oh gosh, who is the reporter? Who's the reporter? I think from CBS that I did a video on a long time ago. Well, anyway, I'll put his name up here, but in his article, he said the big thing with Fenn is burying the chest where he wants to die. As I said, I was always I would kind of think about that, but not think about it enough, obviously. And that's what all these people figured out. You have to figure out where he wanted to die, and then think about the blaze in the chest, which Fenn had said. But I was always putting the two together, I guess. Okay, what else I got going on here before we go? Idiot. Just really. Oh, okay, that's great. So I've got duplicate pages. That always helps when you're doing this, to have duplicate pages, so you can suddenly find yourself in this maze of pages when you're trying to figure out an order. Okay, that's not important either. Okay, so okay, before we get to the 6 questions, we're going to, my last thing here in the notes was from Blackbeard. He's one of the guys, he's one well, he's a searcher. He makes a lot of intelligent comments. And Blackbeard said this in one of my comments on my page. As I've already said, I think the legal cases are pretty much over. I just don't think that Barbara is going to get much of anywhere further because she's now dealing with Zoe, the administrator of the Fenn estate. Fenn's no longer here to confirm anything. She can ask things about Dale. I suppose she could ask Dale about that. Dale kids around in that video that I just mentioned. He kids Cynthia, goes, well, I know you know the location. And she's going, don't say that. People are going to believe me. He's like, yeah, but you know where it is. I just don't think anything's going to come of this. Because nobody, even if people, well, let's not even go there. I just think the court cases are over. That's all I'm trying to say. I think the chase is over. I keep repeating. It's over. I think it was in Wyoming. I don't think it was in New Mexico. I hate to be kind of a curmudgeon about this, but I think people that I've been kind of kept, well, there are just people out there that want to just keep talking about their solve, or they just want to keep saying Jack's not the finder and stuff, and I just firmly believe Jack is the man, because between his Medium article and the 6 questions and everything, it's just always very well written, very clear thinking, and consistent. There's nothing inconsistent about it. And it's finally I had to kind of break myself out of the groupthink and break myself out of my own biases and go, this is really how he found it. This incredible ability to divorce himself from the groupthink and divorce himself from his biases to a large extent. Just do an incredible amount of work, read and see everything he could from Forrest Fenn, and literally just figure out Forrest's way of thinking and know when Forrest was saying things that were not usual to Forrest's way of looking at things. And that's quite a feat, and that's what Jack did. I'm getting a little kooky here. Blackbeard said, notice alert warning. I was looking over the available court documents online from the Brian Erskine case against Forrest Fenn, and anybody looking for remedy with the Fenn estate through the courts for any reason whatsoever, it does appear you are now on the clock. You must properly submit it. I believe it's called a creditor's claim directly to the Fenn estate representative, and who I believe is Zoe Old, and also to the New Mexico District Court, overseeing the estate probate within the next few months, or you are then forever barred from bringing any such legal action for any reasons whatsoever against the estate ever again. And you know what, folks? That's not conspiratorial. That's only the way it should be. We've had a long time now since the Forrest Fenn treasure has been found. Forrest is gone, and the Fenn estate is obviously just saying, look, we have no problem with you putting in a claim if you feel you have a valid claim, or even if we feel you don't have a valid claim. But if you feel you got a valid claim for the next few months, bring it forward, make your case, make it known, because he doesn't say how many months, but he says that after the next few months, they're no longer going to take any kind of claims for the treasure. So I think that's fair. They do not want to spend the rest of their lives worrying about people suddenly going bankrupt in 5 years and going, I'm going to go back and get those Fenns and see if I can get some money out of them for that treasure hunt. I think it's only fair. Blackbeard says, I'm certainly no lawyer, but from what I've read so far, that indeed looks to be the score. And it makes sense as well, because that couldn't just be an open-ended thing forever, blah, blah, blah. Just what I've just been saying. So yeah. If you have any case to be made, You have a couple of few months to get it in there to the Fenn estate and to the district court in New Mexico and make your case known or forever hold your peace. Okay. So now I'm going to go over these 6 questions with Jenny Kyle. I think she said on her website that it was going to be the last Forrest Fenn 6 questions she did. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jack's willing that she might come back and ask him some more questions. All right. This is after, as I said, when I read the 6 questions, I was so taken with the intelligence behind the answers that Jack had that I said, this is the guy. I know I was kind of, when I was reading things like the medium.com article, which I thought was very flowery and kind of odd, I wasn't sure. And then, people were writing me and they're saying, Jack doesn't know what he's talking about. He's emailing me and he doesn't even know the solve. He doesn't know the solution and this and that. And I was kind of going, okay. And yeah, you're right. And I didn't know, but I'm just kind of like, okay, people are giving me all this information. And then I read the 6 questions and I went, good grief, this is the guy. Okay, so thanks to Jenny Kyle for making this happen and for Jack to answering the questions. All right, so what I've done is I've gone in here and I've highlighted the points of the 6 questions with Jenny Kyle that Jack has answered. And these are the things that interested me and showed me just how smart this guy was to figure out the treasure and how I just totally missed the boat on things because of what he informs me was the way he did it. So I'm not going to read, obviously, the whole thing. It's fairly long, but I am going to read these particular questions and or answers where Jack explains his logic and the way he approached this. In answer to question 1, Jack says, there is a great investor named Charlie Munger who helms Berkshire Hathaway with Warren Buffett. Munger is turning 97 in a few weeks, and he's the most rational person I've ever seen, only sharpening with age. He has a lecture called The Psychology of Human Misjudgment. These are the kind of things Jack's reading that inspired my own YouTube video. If you want to go to Jack's page, I guess I'll leave the link for that too. He hardly has any videos. I started to watch one he has. Well, it's right here. He, in response to the psychology of human misjudgment, Jack did one on the treasure hunt back in 2019. And it's very intellectual. And later on, he kind of kids about it being very intellectual. It really is. And it talks about things like it talks about things like cognitive, and it talks about things like cognitive bias, confirmation bias, and it's kind of deep and it's impressive. And he kids later on somewhere that he thought it was over intellectualized. I didn't watch the whole thing because it was over intellectualized. Jack says, I think if I ever wrote a book on the chase, it would be at least as interesting to explore how people didn't figure it out as how I did. Anyway, personally, Jack, I don't think that's going to be a big seller, just between you and me. Just writing about how people couldn't figure it out. But anyway, go for it. Anyway, I heard Munger once say that, quote, a problem fully understood is half solved. And I think that kind of approach was key to the way he solved the thing. A problem once understood is half solved. He goes on to say, I wanted to exhaustively read, watch, and listen to every single article about the chase wherein Forrest was quoted and every interview he ever gave on the subject to understand as well as I could the nature of the problem at hand, I tracked down all those primary sources and went over them multiple times, which is why, oh, Eric, I wanted to exhaustively read, watch, and listen to every single article about the chase where Forrest was quoted and every interview he ever gave on the subject to understand as well as I could the nature of the problem at hand. I tracked down all those primary sources, went over them multiple times, which is many hours of work, but each time I went through them, I understood Forrest and what he was trying to do with the poem better, each time making connections between different things he said in different places. That's work. I didn't do that. I don't know how many of you did. It's really fun to talk about the chase, and I noticed a lot of us were always talking about it online. Always talking about it, and just getting off on talking about it, and dreaming about finding it and stuff. And meanwhile, Jack's working his ass off, reading things multiple times, looking for all these probably obscure things Fenn had said or written, and reading them all. I didn't do that. What else we got in here? I mean, this guy really earned it. And Forrest Fenn once said, you're going to have to really earn it. You're going to have to really work. I didn't do the work. Here is something Jack said that I thought was really smart too. In the middle of a paragraph, he says, remembering that the poem itself is not the point, but rather the special place where he wished he could have died. I think I figured out where it was by being relentlessly goal-oriented, remembering that the poem itself is not the point, but rather the special place where he wished he could have died. But I think the next phase, boots on the ground, rewarded a process-oriented approach, putting in the methodical work out in the woods required to find the blaze. But I think the next phase, boots on the ground, rewarded a process-oriented approach, putting in the methodical work out in the woods required to find the blaze. It didn't even occur to me. Remembering that the poem itself is not the point never even occurred to me. I was just totally, the poem was everything to me. The poem for me was the point. I now understand. That's why this guy is the finder, folks. He is at least explaining to me why I didn't find it and why he did without ever showing me the location or explaining the solution. This is how I know instinctively reading this is how I should have thought this through to find it. He picks out so many things that I fell for that I know he outthought me on that. I'm one of those people. He now says, I should write a book about how people didn't find it. Yeah, I could have a huge chapter for me. I still think that beaver dam, though. I still think that. So beaver dam, I had this whole thing where Fenn was talking about a mountain man, though, not pirates. And Jack says he has a big thing for pirates. He also had a big thing for mountain men. He also had a big thing for mountain men. Okay, here's something else. I tried to get into not only Forrest's psychology, but also the psychology of those people who had been close without realizing it. Based on tidbits Forrest had given out over the years, to me it was clear there was something in the back half of the second stanza that was a huge difficulty for people to figure out, forming a bottleneck there. As far as I could understand, the second stanza would be the home of Brown he's talking about. As I have gone alone in there, and with my treasure bold, I can leave my riches where and hint of riches. No, I can leave my treasure where and hint of riches new and old. Is that the first? I'm losing it because I haven't read it so long. And then begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down, not far but too far to walk. Put in below the home of Brown. If that's the second stanza, the back half of that would be the home of Brown. I think he's talking about creating a bottleneck right there. huge difficulty for people to figure out. So when I was figuring out the clues, I was looking for something in that section that would not be an easy guess, but would require some real effort to see things from Fenn's perspective. Never occurred to me. I was off on this. My saw was based on an old story of a mountain man, and it had to do with the beaver dam. I don't want to embarrass myself too much here. My beaver dam was the home of Brown. Because beaver dams were actually homes. They were actually houses, the beavers, and they had little sections. And mountain men would actually go and stay in beaver dams when the weather got real bad, if they were in a blizzard and they were afraid of, I know, Eric, you okay? Yeah, they would actually go and stay in beaver dams and save themselves that way. And whatever. So I was certainly looking for a challenge in that section, and it seemed fitting that was the part of the poem that felt most like solving a riddle to me. Again, I think he's talking about put in below the home of Brown. Begin at where warm waters halt, take it in the canyon down, not far but too far to walk, put in below the home of Brown. But in talking to Forrest after I found the treasure, he did not purposefully design the clue there as a riddle. It was just how he saw things. Isn't that interesting? Assuming I'm on the right track, that assuming that I'm talking about the right stanza, the Homer Brown stanza, it wasn't meant to be tricky in any case. I assume even having the capital Brown was not meant to be tricky, which, but it's true. That Homer Brown thing really got people always talking about the Homer Brown. And this guy's, Jack was just saying, it's just how he saw things when he was writing about his journey to the place he wanted to die. I think that's fascinating. By the way, that was the answer to question 2.